I am going to start walking you through building smarter and governing better, so unlocking App Engine with confidence. So just as a level set, if you have any questions, please feel free to add them into the Q&A section. We do have them there. We also do have the webinar chat. And Daniel and Annette, you are both great right there. That is the Snoopy music. If anybody has any guesses as to the artist that performed that, that'd be great too. But if not, I can tell you what it is at the end. So we are going to get started. Just as a heads up and a little bit of housekeeping. We are going to go through our safe harbor statement. So this presentation is going to contain some forward-looking statements. So please do not make any purchasing decisions based on those forward-looking statements, because as you know, the roadmap may change with the ever-evolving landscape of the ServiceNow ecosystem. We make no guarantees about what is going to be released and when. So let's get moving forward. Everybody, you can see my screen, not just my face, correct? Just want to double check before we get moving through. I set up the share, but I want to make sure everybody can see. If I could just get a thumbs up. Cool, you can see the screen. Awesome. So first thing, we have saved time at the end for QA, so please use the QA button instead of the chat if you have any questions. This presentation is going to be recorded and shared following the event. And after the event, we will prompt you to fill out a short survey. Would love to hear what you think of the content and the presentation so that we can better tailor what we are presenting to you guys. So let me move forward. Just to give you an overview, everybody loves seeing their own face big on a screen, right? My name is Kieran McMorrow. I'm a principal outbound product manager with our Creator Workflows app engine. And I am the outbound product manager for our ServiceNow Studio, for Creator Studio, for App Engine Management Center, and our Dev Sandboxes capability. And today I'm going to talk through a couple of these pieces, really about kind of App Engine as a whole, our application development toolkit, and how governance really is one of the primary pieces of an application development center of excellence. I skipped over that slide real quick. So yeah, feel free to scan this QR code. There, you will see the schedule of other live on ServiceNow events. As you are aware of, this is an interactive series. This is really meant to be able to communicate with you guys, understand where you're at, convey where we are with our product catalogs, and really make sure that this is a dialogue. You guys understand where we're going, why we're going there, and what our current features and functionalities are. So let me pop in. So today's agenda, we are going to talk about the dev landscape and governance. We're going to talk about App Engine Management Center. We're going to talk about release and environment management. And that being said, we're going to talk about release ops and developer sandboxes. We're also going to cover some of our governance roadmap and then leave a little bit of time for demo and Q&A. So first off, just want to talk about some of our no-code builders that we have here on the platform. So traditionally, we have a number of no-code builders that allow line of business users, subject matter experts, to be able to turn business process expertise into no-code apps. We really want to allow them to adapt and refine those experiences as those business needs change. So these business and line of business users, they tend to work in silos. They use non-standard tools. This ends up producing shadow IT. So we really are looking to reduce sprawl and bring them into the loop of ensuring that they build out applications and can build out applications that mirror their processes, that may not raise to the level of being institution-wide. They may be individual productivity apps. So if you don't have a low-code strategy, this happens at your organization. We provide tools like Catalog Builder, like Creator Studio, to allow those line of business process expertise to build out applications for those processes. We also offer traditional low-code development environments. So we have tools like ServiceNow Studio that allow low-code developers to extend our core workflows with custom logic and automation. You implement an initial module inside ServiceNow. Then after a number of cycles, you realize, hey, this potential workflow needs to be supplemented, or we have this in-house process that we'd like to be able to create as a bespoke app. And this is where you start using ServiceNow Studio to create those applications, to create those workflows that match your processes, to extend those applications. And we also want to tailor that user experience. So ServiceNow Studio is that kind of front door of app dev on the platform where the vast majority of application development is going to occur. We have tools, ever evolving tools like our ServiceNow IDE that are focused on kind of the pro developer persona, somebody who maybe develops across a number of different stacks. They may not be specific to ServiceNow. They may come in to integrate or to use, create bespoke experiences for very specific use cases. So using ServiceNow IDE, we can do incremental prompt-based development. We offer concurrent Git-based development, so you can have kind of the modern CI/CD development process, and leverage modern UIs using frameworks like React and powered by the ServiceNow platform. And one of the big things that we tend to talk about is collaborating across these personas, being able to map those business demands to specific requests, to provide dashboards and data visualizations, to create subflows and have repeat processes that can be re-leveraged in multiple places, to standardize processes using record producers with variable sets, and to focus on table inheritance for common data patterns, to use JavaScript for no-code usage by wrapping those in elements that can be re-leveraged in other parts of the platform. By collaborating across these different personas, we create hybrid application development teams. But one of the primary things that we also need to do is to be able to govern development as it occurs across all these personas, to be able to understand the full spectrum of what is occurring in your application development on the Now platform, and to be able to really make concrete decisions about that, about what apps, what developers, and what users are using those apps and how those apps are being deployed. To support and scalable and secure development, governance must be seamlessly orchestrated across builders, request intake, across compliance checks, environment gating. So this need is for fluid transitions across those elements is a central attribute of governance. We want to make sure that we're automating connections between requested work and development outputs. And we want to see consistent full team visibility into governance. So governance and development are inseparable. Governance is what enables development to flow securely and efficiently. So we here at ServiceNow are focusing on ensuring the seamless integration that between development and governance to reduce risk, to accelerate delivery, and to enable full scale of application development and deployment, and to also help integrate AI native governance and development into that process. The first piece that we tend to talk about when we come to application governance is our App Engine Management Center. We use App Engine Management Center to manage custom development end to end. So it's the central hub for managing custom app development on the Now platform, and it provides visibility, control, and compliance across the whole app lifecycle. So AEMC, I tend to describe it as the home for application deployment, and it's the single pane of glass for managing and viewing the full spectrum of your application development that's occurring within your organization across instances. So it's vital for organizations, and it's only going to become more important as we're integrating more capabilities moving into 2026 and beyond 2026. We're really looking to allow more deployment options. So we want to be able to provide the ability for users and our customers to move from pipeline-based deployment to release ops-driven deployment. We want to be able to accommodate source control, use update sets in the context of App Engine Management Center. We're trying to meet you where you're at in your application deployment and provide greater visibility, greater flexibility in the tools that we offer so that you can move your applications how you need to, how they align with your organization. AEMC natively supports distributed teams and citizen development too. And so that's one of the pieces that we really try to communicate with you guys. So we're going to walk through kind of governance with App Engine. Governance, app governance begins with the intake process. So we're trying to centralize the ability for organizations to understand the demand from businesses, to categorize those requests and direct those requests to a central group so that that group can determine complexity, the necessary access, and which application development experiences they are going to provide and provision to those developers as they need. So we tend to use forms for collecting app ideas before we give access to a developer. So we might have a catalog item where a user can request access to develop an app or to intake that app. And we also provide the ability for administrators to provision developers based on their skill level. The second pillar is really governance, is building the app. So that's managing collaboration requests, monitoring the developers and monitoring custom apps in development where they currently are. So App Engine Management Center provides dashboards that give visibility into what apps are currently deployed, where they're currently at in the deployment cycle, and the usage of those applications. So you have dashboards that really understand the right users have the right access to the right apps and the usage of them across those instances. We also provide collaboration tools that now allow developers to invite others so that they can co-create in those apps. So we really want to provide the ability for developers using whatever tool they are to pull in the right users who might need to supplement that application or continue working on that. The second part of governance with App Engine is the validation and deploy. So we want to be able to manage the deployment of scoped and global apps to our production environments. We want to be able to use automated testing frameworks, instance scan, change management, and integrate with CMDB. And we want to be able to understand if apps reach the level of readiness before they're actually deployed to the next environment. We also want to maintain and monitor. So we want to be able to monitor those custom apps in production. We want to verify and track the role assignments on those custom apps. So we want to understand licensing considerations if we have custom apps with subscription management. And we want to be able to monitor that custom app usage when it is deployed to the production environment. So being able to monitor those apps in production to understand where they're at, how many users are assigned to them, and where they are in the deployment cycle to reduce app sprawl. So we have a full sense of what apps are deployed to what environments, be able to make assessments on their criticality, on their usage over time, so that potentially we can deprovision those apps so that we don't have apps kind of just clogging up our production environment, and we can get the most relevant applications to the relevant users at the time they need them. So subscription monitoring is a big piece. It allows admins to be able to monitor those custom roles that are licensable, who they're assigned to, so that if we do have apps that are not being used, we can potentially remove the access for those particular sets of users, so that we can critically make sure that those apps that are being that are absolutely necessary are consuming the roles that they have, but we have visibility into that as well. And as the secondary part, the last part that we tend to talk about is the retirement of apps. So we have integrations with user experience analytics to be able to make intelligent app decisions if we want to be able to retire particular applications. So we can really see total usage, the sessions when they're used, over what time frames. We can select those and really be able to understand at a depth-based perspective how an app is being used and by whom. Moving into deployment, so that piece was really to kind of give the context on how we tend to use App Engine Management Center in a governance context of custom application development that we have. But deployment is also a big piece. We fully recognize that our customers tend to have their own way that they like to deploy and manage their applications. And that's one of the pieces that we're working on expanding to be able to meet you where you're at with how you're currently doing application deployment and development. So currently, App Engine Management Center enables admins to use pipelines so we build any number of pipelines to be able to deploy applications across our environment landscape. Potentially, we might have development, multiple testing instances, staging instances before it actually gets to a production. And if you have kind of diverging environments for particular types of work, you can manage multiple pipelines using App Engine Management Center. But we do understand that a large portion of our customers do use update sets for their application deployment and management. And that's one of the pieces that we're looking to accommodate for our customers as we move through our Zurich Store 2 release and into our new Australia release in the coming new year. As part of the deployment process, we do integrate with change management and our CMDBs. So we allow our customers and our admins to leverage their existing processes in the deployment process so that we're not just deploying applications, but we're ensuring that those applications get registered and managed in your CMDB. As I mentioned, one of the pieces that we're really looking to accommodate for, and we have brought to the platform in our Zurich release, and we're going to be only supplementing in our Zurich Store 2 release is release ops. So release ops is a new capability that allows organizations to create releases and apply update sets to those releases so that we have the ability to have update sets-based deployment using our App Engine Management Center. So the kind of the pillars of release ops is to be able to provide increased clarity to our customers. So we want to be able to give a complete view of every deployment. So we want to understand not just what's being delivered, but how it's being implemented. We're looking to increase our confidence of our customers. So we want to be able to achieve reliable releases through structured dev to prod flows, using automation and making sure that we have consistent issue-free outcomes. So we're not just doing those ad hoc update set deployments to an instance and trying to capture all these pieces, but we can schedule particular releases. We can apply update sets against those releases. If those testing fails on particular pieces, we can actually move those development tasks out of that release so that we ensure that what is released, we know when it is going to happen, what is going to be there, and how it is going to be deployed. So we reduce a lot of kind of that churn that we tend to see as part of the deployment process. And we want to be able to also enable faster, more frequent deployments. So we want to use those predictable releases to detect issues early on before we end up doing the deployment. So the big part of release ops is being able to connect the inner loop of development with the outer loop release process. So that inner loop, our developers tend to build and test in those isolated environments. I'm going to talk a little bit more about isolated environments later when I break into our developer sandboxes. But that is one of the key pieces of the inner loop of DevOps, of release ops. So we want to be able to run instant scans. We want to be able to run deployment analyzation. We want to be able to use ATF against kind of all of these deployment tasks in these releases. And we want to be able to submit a deployment that it can be reviewed before we do so. And the outer loop is being able to provide that defined schedule release where admins have the ability to say on Friday at 9 o'clock, this is when we are going to do the production 3 release. We want to be able to have those deployment requests attached to a release 4 deployment. So I'm going to provide a demo of release ops in App Engine Management Center, what that's going to look like. So for our release on December 4th, release ops in AEMC is going to be a capability that is coming. This is going to be a parameter change inside App Engine Management Center and will allow you to use your existing pipelines, but leverage release ops as a new capability with that singular parameter switchover. I was hoping to do this live, but yesterday we did one live and it did kind of poop out on us. So I'm going to play this recording. If there are any problems with the audio, please let me know. Add that to the chat and I will keep an eye.
All right, I'm here in the new ZS2 version of App Engine Management Center. So this is the new dashboard. We've moved around some of the charts. The existing pipeline is still here. And then we have this new release card that's going to show in progress releases, upcoming, recently completed. I can click on any of these. It'll take me directly to those releases. We also have the new deployment requests here. That'll take me to the request page. And then the old deployment request will show up as legacy deployment requests. So let me go to see all releases, which takes me to the release management tab. And I can see all the different releases in different states. I can filter by on demand or scheduled, the state, assignment group, date range. I can also toggle this into a calendar view, so I can see this release that I'm going to be working with today. Here I can click on it and it's going to show me what this release looks like. I don't have any deployment requests in here yet, so we'll start to see those as I add them. So let me jump over to ServiceNow Studio in development, and I have this role here that we are just going to give. First, I'm going to change the update set. We'll create ph demo update set, just so I can find it easier. We'll save that and make sure that is the update set, and we'll just give this elevator privileges update. And now I'm going to go back to the home page, click on deployments, and I'm going to find that update set that I was just working with. So the application was, let's see, ERG, there it is. And here's my update set. It's in progress. So I am going to set it to complete and update. Once I do that, I now have this promote update set button. So I'm going to click on that, and it's going to launch me for the MVP into production to submit my deployment requests. I can either add it to an existing deployment request, or in this case, we're going to create a new deployment request. So phdemo dr 25, and I'm actually going to make the assignment group the App Engine admins. Remove that. One of these has to be filled out. Source environment actually should be getting auto-populated, but it's coming from our dev instance. At this point, I can choose between a scheduled release or on demand. If I choose on demand, this will be the only deployment request on the release, and a release will get auto-created for me. And this is for things like hot fixes, or if customers aren't doing scheduled releases, kind of how our existing App Engine pipeline works today. Just whenever the work's ready, you go ahead and start moving it to production. In this case, we are going to choose the release that I created, and then here I can actually choose the ATF test suites that I want to run on this particular deployment. And so we'll just do this simple parent test suite, and I can also add instance scan suites. So this is our app readiness suite, the best practices parents. So I'm going to make sure that is run.
So I'll just pause for a second. My apologies on the audio, but if there are any particular parts that you want me to annotate, I can definitely do that. I have walked through this demo. So essentially what Brooks is walking through at this point is that when we create a release, we are able to apply both instance scan suites and ATF suites. And so she's applying best practice suites that we have right here. So essentially what happens is when we initiate that release process, we come through to the production environment. We are either able to select a release or create a new one. We can select if we want to do on demand. So that is going to be if we have, say, an ad hoc deployment request that needs to occur. Otherwise, we can select an existing release and then apply those pieces of testing. So if we have a basic test suite that we tend to run, or an instance scan suite for that deployment, that's when we will apply that. So I'll play this. If you have any questions or want those unpacked, just let me know. You can add that in the chat and I will address those.
While this deployment request is in draft, I can continue to add update sets to the deployment requests. And then once I'm ready for the playbook to actually kick off, I'm going to set it to ready to assess. So jumping back over to AMC, if I refresh this, I should now see that deployment requests attached to the release. And you can see now it's in assessing. and I can open the deployment request, and I will be able to see the update sets that are attached. I can see the ATF that are attached. Um, the results will end up there. This is the instance scan suite, and then the playbook here. So I can track the progress of how this is moving through the playbook. If I go back to my release, let's see. Manager I'm going to be concerned with is the ready for deployment state. I need all of my deployment requests to be in ready for deployment by the time the freeze date hits. In theory, customers will have much more than one deployment request here. So as release manager, I'm trying to make sure all of the deployment requests that would be on a release get to ready for deployment. If they do not make it to ready for deployment by the freeze date, they are going to be deferred. So that means that they will not be released to production. And as a release manager, I would need to go in and move those deployment requests to another release. So let me open up one of these. So you can see here, I had a deployment request that was in the reconciling state, which means it had either an ATF test failure or update set conflict, something like that. And I didn't finish the reconciliation. So I get a notification about like how many deferred deployment requests I have. And this review button will actually filter the list to those deferred deployment requests so that I can go move them to a new release. And then the last thing I will show is an on-demand release here. So this is, like I said, an on-demand release is just going to be a single deployment request. And you can still have multiple update sets. In this case, we just have one update set, but it's just a quicker view. Since it's just one deployment request, we don't have the charts or anything, but same concepts of things that will happen other than this is not going to go to production based on a scheduled release date. It's just going to move as quickly as possible through the playbooks. As long as it passes any checks, it will then be deployed all the way to production. And that is it for release management in AEMC.
So thank you very much for sticking through that. I know it was a little bit tough with the audio. Can you hear my audio? I was not seeing an update. Looks like it's still working. So yeah, apologies for the volume on that, but the brilliant Brooks Hawkins, who's the inbound product manager for AEMC, did that recording for me, and that was the best I could boost it in the time frame. But we will have more content coming out about release ops in App Engine Management Center. But this is really going to be transformative, allowing organizations to leverage update sets using kind of some of these modern processes and enabling you to kind of do these scheduled releases. And I'm really excited to get this in the hands of folks. So moving forward, one of the pieces I also want to talk about is developer sandboxes. So developer sandboxes is a capability that we released this year that also is going to help.
ZS2 version
This started playing again. Don't know why that did. So Developer Sandbox is a capability we released this year that is another kind of key piece in modernizing governance on doing your application development. So what Developer Sandboxes offer are scalable concurrent development using an existing instance. So essentially what these are clones of your sub-production instance on that particular instance, and it allows developers to build and test in parallel without impacting each other's work. So sandboxes are a capability that allow you to take that subprod instance and provision on demand those fully isolated sandboxes. So they capture the full metadata of that base instance, creating a secondary node on that instance. And they can be allocated to developers based on whatever criteria that you define. Say they have a particular story they want to work against, or they have a particular developer you want to work on this area, or you have test plans, whatever custom criteria you're looking for. So these sandboxes are ephemeral, and that's one of the pieces that we talk about. Essentially, what they allow is if you have a particular development cycle that you're working on, you have an epic or a story, you can create that instance at that time, and it's going to capture the base state of that instance, including the full metadata. And I will say this does preclude any sensitive data, such as HR pieces there. But it allows your developer to create to work using source control to create a branch and essentially do their parallel development, and then merge those branches using source control tools at a later to ensure that that development can occur without conflicts. So the traditional development flow as it occurs is, so developers will be working on a singular subprod instance. All those changes that a developer makes are saved to that same instance. So sharing that single environment can increase the risk of conflict changes. If you have multiple teams working on similar pieces of metadata, similar script includes, similar files, sometimes you can run into collisions. And so that one instance restricts teams to a single version of that code. But using developer sandboxes, integrating with source control, the changes that a developer makes are isolated to their current sandbox. So this really allows a developer to make modifications to any pieces of metadata that they want without having to worry about conflicts on that particular instance. So multiple versions of those changes can be saved to source control, so GitHub, and then merged according to whatever best practices your organization has set up for kind of your management of code. The typical flow would look like this. You can provision a sandbox. You can provision a sandbox to Abel, one to Joe. They each create a branch that's going to be specific to their sandbox. So those metadata changes are going to be isolated to their sandbox. And when they decide to commit those changes, it's going to be committed to their sandbox branch. And then depending on those processes your organization has set up for merging conflicts, they can be merged back to the main branch, following that kind of admin based management of those pieces. And at that point, you can mark that release point, and you can release from that host instance using your existing processes. Currently, developer sandboxes, how we think about them versus subprod instances is that subprod instances partition work by team or project, and groups can start from different configurations. So those concurrent work streams are isolated, they're minimally aligned, and that's your kind of durable environment for long-term changes. But for developer sandboxes, this allows your developers to have isolated metadata changes for a particular project, for a particular scenario. So all developers are going to begin with that same baseline instance configuration. You spin up the dev instance when you need it. It captures that baseline configuration, and they develop against it. And then potentially you can deprovision that instance until you have another scenario you want them to work against. And those development activities can follow that consistent cadence, whatever that cadence is for your organization. And work can be completed in that temporary environment and committed to version control. So currently, developer sandboxes are natively work best using code-based conflict remediation. And so the tool that offers that right now best on the ServiceNow platform is our ServiceNow IDE using our domain-specific language Fluent. But as we start fluentizing more pieces of the platform, and as we integrate Build Agent into more pieces of our platform, Fluent is becoming covering more and more metadata types. So in our Australia release in 2026, you're going to start to see Build Agent get integrated into ServiceNow Studio. You're going to start to see more fluentized capabilities. So Dev Sandboxes currently function best using kind of that code-based conflict management. But as we fluentize more in 2026, you're going to start seeing Dev Sandboxes become more and more relevant to your dev stack, how you're working, because the dev types that we do using low-code tools like ServiceNow Studio are going to become more prevalent and offer more metadata coverage. So here we're going to start talking about a little bit of the roadmap, what the strategic pillars of App Engine Management Center and application governance look moving forward. So the pieces that we're really focusing on into 2026 and beyond is to be AI native. We're looking to integrate with AI Control Tower to provide secure, efficient AI development. We want to be able to leverage AI to make admins more efficient. So being able to surface relevant metrics to our App Engine Management Center admins. As I mentioned, we talk about AEMC as the single pane of glass, but that's really going to become more and more relevant as we move into 2026 and beyond, because we're looking to integrate with release ops, with Vault, with Now Learning, so that we can provide a unified experience for managing the whole development lifecycle end to end. So not just deployment, not just currently what's available, but also being able to understand where developers are, where they're at in their learning process, be able to assign them trainings, and be able to make critical decisions on who gets access to what based on where they are in their skill levels. And we're also looking to unlock development and scale. So we want to tackle issues like developer identity management, app management, and we want to be able to facilitate scaling development on the Now platform using AEMC. So providing proactive assessments and recommendations based on what is currently there so that you can scale up. You have visibility into your licensing, into your users, what is being deployed, when, and where. So to drill into the AI native piece, we talked about being able to kind of lean into the integrations. So we want to be able to detect when AI has built something. So as we move beyond, we're going to start seeing AI developers that we can assign tasks to, assign stories to. But we want to be able to detect when AI has built something, created some sort of pieces of metadata, so that we can flag those for a particular review, have development best practices aligned to those development tasks, and understand that. We want to integrate with AI Control Tower. We want to be able to reduce manual tasks so that we can govern efficiently. So if something is a routine task, be able to say, I want an AI to be able to flag me when something deviates from our particular flows. We want to be able to focus on recommendations and ensure that humans are in the loop for all pieces. So humans have the ability to really see what AI is doing when we are assigning it tasks, what it is providing us with recommendations or taking care of some of these repeat tasks for us. And we will always want to make sure that we're complementing our AEMC releases. So admins have full visibility. We are integrating with Now Assist Studio. We want to ensure that we have custom AI agents, custom AI skills, and really understand what is occurring. For that single pane of glass. So we're really looking to integrate with the right tools to make sure that AEMC is the single place that customers come to manage custom development. We want to ensure that our customers are able to access AEMC from any instance, depending on their persona, depending on the roles, so that they can see the right data and do the right tasks depending on what they need to do. So if it's an admin, if it's a developer, really understand what is happening there. As I talked about, we're looking to integrate with more and I would say more deeply with ATF, with Sandboxes, with our Vault product, to really surface more data about subscription management, how your licenses are assigned and how you can manage those. So traditionally, AEMC is focused on that admin persona in production, but really governance touches every instance and it touches multiple personas. So we want to be able to open up the door so that multiple personas, not just admins, get value out of App Engine Management Center. We're looking to unlock development and scale. And to drill into that piece, one of those big pieces is app management. So we want to provide that single location to be able to store all relevant app data. So that's including CIs, stakeholders, release notes, really understand the full vision of what that app entails, what it looks like, and what it's doing. We want to be able to have developer profiles. So we want you as customers to be able to manage permissions, training, onboarding for our human developers. And we also want to be able to provide the ability to manage permissions, prompts, and have human review for AI developers. As we have AI content, be able to understand if we assign a particular story or a particular task to that AI developer, what it is doing, why it is doing, how it is doing that, and what bounds it's operating inside of. And so that's kind of the end of where we are at for our roadmap, but I do want to kind of cover a couple pieces right here. So You can put AI to work faster using our customer success group. So we have offerings such as our ServiceNow Impact, which allows you to maximize the power of our platform for business transformation. So Impact can help customers like yourselves with the support and expertise of ServiceNow to help get value faster. We do have our ServiceNow University. So please go there, train yourself, look at what we have. We always try to make sure that our content is relevant, updated, and really helps you connect to how we're thinking and get certified on those processes. And then we also have our expert services, which they help you implement and optimize your ServiceNow. Our expert services are, they know what's best practice because they're part of our organization and they can help you guys get value immediately. So I will say thank you. Always look forward to these opportunities to talk to you guys. Please, as I said, keep an eye on the additional webinars that we have upcoming. We've got a lot of great content. Our Live on ServiceNow series is always looking to provide you guys value and connect you to how we are thinking. So once again, thank you for joining, and I will look forward to chatting with you guys more in the future.